Hi, Luis. Welcome to Meet the Brains. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your research interests.
Yes, so the central issue of our research purpose is to understand how the humans learn and memorize things. So basically what we want to understand is how we are capable to learn new things from our daily life activity and how eventually we may be able to recover that from the past. So we are kind of like dealing with this problem by focusing a lot on how the brain and the brain supports these processes. We understand that actually most of these mechanisms take place in the brain, and it's a valuable insight or asset to understand the phenomenon on its own.
Very cool. So what kind of methods or techniques do you do to research this?
Right. So most of the problems that we want to address are related to fundamental mechanisms. So that means that we want to study this phenomenon of learning and memory in healthy humans, adults, most of them. And to do that and to approach the brain, we need to use neuroimaging techniques that are non-invasive, meaning that are not problematic or may not have an impact on the day life. And the current techniques that we can use these days are mostly based on electroencephalography on the scalp or neuroimaging such as fMRI or MRI. Now, currently, for recent years, we have also started new projects on neurological cases, and we take the chance to record direct brain activity, taking the chance that actually they are in hospitals and they do have deep electrodes that they are important to monitorize their pathology. So based on clinical approaches that we just basically come over there and we record activity directly in the brain. And I think the mix of the two at long run could be very valuable and informative.
Well, since you work with patients, I'm assuming there's also a variety of real-world applications for your research.
Sure, that's certainly an issue that actually we're working in our group, but in many others. And I think it's a sensitive aspect now these days in the community. I would say even extending beyond the learning and memory field. So we've been dealing and working and understanding a lot the brain, but now we really need to transfer this to a real problem, say, real everyday life activity. But this is an issue, it's not that simple, because most of the knowledge that we kind of built up, it has really tough transfer possibilities so far. Though, for the last 5-10 years, it's been an explosion on this pressure and this motivation. And some of the aspects that we took as a challenge was to kind of instead of exploring memories and learning in the lab, which is what we have been doing because we want the control for everything. We've been also using some technology like wearable cameras and some other applications that allow us to track memory instances in a real life for healthy people. And now we're trying to bring this knowledge that we kind of built up into patients. So this is one of the things we're working on, but that's certainly a pressure in community in general.
Well, also with projects of such a wide scope, I'm assuming you also collaborate with industry or with other disciplines.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the big challenges these days, I'd say, again, not just in learning and memory, though I would say that memory field is one of those that has a lot of cross-disciplinary exchange of information, which means that in essence, one brain is not enough. Not just to do proper research, but also to understand what comes out from there. And it's almost, I'd say, very relevant or mandatory to collaborate with other people. In our field, for instance, or in my lab, or in our lab, what we do is we heavily collaborate with people inside the Institute of Neuroscience of the University of Barcelona, but we do have strong collaborations with hospitals in many of the projects that we've been discussing. But now these days, and because of the many facilities, technological facilities, our collaborative tree expanded all over the world, and we do have very strong collaborations in groups of US and also in the European Union, definitely.
Great. And I guess as a closing question, I was wondering what you would say to your younger self when you were starting your scientific career.
I think there's nothing to that I could, the typical sentence that one would expect to listen to, because it's very experiential at the end of the day, the way you deal with this world. But the only thing that one may have learned from that is patience. But patience is a tricky thing because right, it always means that, right, you have to be very quiet and very just await passively to things to happen. And because this is not the way I think things should move, one has to be extremely active and very motivated. I would rather prefer to use this Hamilton expression that's used, which basically refer to wait for it. So you really have to look for something in a way of like very actively, but in a way that knowing that there's something that's going to happen eventually.
Well, thank you so much for explaining us a bit about your research and your journey. Thanks.
Thank you.